Your body is neuroplastic. We can change.
You can rediscover your ability to love yourself and feel whole.
Trauma is all about having felt something and continuing to feel something that's unbearable, very difficult to tolerate.
It's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. And what is it that we find when we recover? We find that connection that we lost in the first place.
A very important part of trauma is you try to master that beast inside of you. Being a trauma survivor is going on a pilgrimage to find out what is going to help you.
When we truly understand our wounds, real healing can begin.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Bessel. Okay, we're live. Okay, glad to see you again, everyone, or I'd say read you. So we're back for the third day of this 5-day summit. Thank you, everyone, for joining in such a strong number. If you're still here after these two days, the third day, where you're among the bravest, so congratulations. We've already spent about 6 hours together, and so far we've been more than 30,000 overall. So thank you, everyone, for showing up. And mostly also, thanks for everyone who's joined a mentor show since Tuesday. Thank you all for your support. It's mostly thanks to you that we're able to organize this kind of free events. So thank you, everyone. And obviously, you can also thank yourselves because, well, this is a gift for yourself and for your own well-being. So yesterday, we had a very dense session with Dr. Peter Levine. We understood the titration, pendulation, renegotiation, all very important concepts. We did some 3 very simple, I thought, but very powerful exercises, including one with the awakening of the tiger in you. So that was really impressive. And we've got 3 more days ahead of us, just as a reminder for everyone. Tomorrow, I'll show some exclusive extracts of the different masterclasses, and I'll be alone with you to show you the different courses. And on Sunday, we're with Dr. Frank Anderson to discover the concept of inner parts. And obviously, today we're with Bessel, and we've got a lot in store for you. But first, Bessel, so can you start by giving a quick introduction of yourself for some who might not know you already?
Well, what can I say about myself? I have been studying trauma for about 50 years. And when I first studied it, I was a junior professor at Harvard. My colleagues all said, why do you study something as crazy as trauma? When you croak, nobody ever will talk about trauma again. And I said, that's the idea. We'd like to solve it. So 50 years ago, we knew nothing about trauma, basically. And today we know a little bit. But even what we know is not sufficient. And so it's a work in progress. I have been very curious about very different methods. I started off studying Prozac for PTSD and Zoloft. And then that wasn't all that successful. So we studied groups, and then we studied EMDR, and we studied yoga, and we studied neurofeedback, and we studied theater, and we studied psychedelics. So it has been a long progression of very different ways of getting there and finding what works for whom, because one thing doesn't work for everybody. And it's been a very exciting actually, Peter Levine is a friend, Frank Anderson is an old student of mine. And so it has been a very lively career of studying and seeing people get better from trauma. Yeah.
Right, and I'd also add because you're very humble that you've written "The Body Keeps the Score," which is a worldwide really phenomenon and has impacted the lives of millions and millions of people. Has really pioneered the work on trauma. So very blessed to have you tonight. I think it's a big chance for everybody. So now that the introductions are made, let's get straight into it. And first off, can you tell us how common is trauma and why should everyone be paying attention to it?
Well, trauma, as in child abuse, witnessing violence, witnessing domestic violence, being part of a violent relationship, having parents who are really not up to the task of taking care of you, who leave you feel terrified, is extremely common. And the figures in the US are pretty clear. About 1 out of 5 women has a history of sexual abuse. 1 out of 4 people have a history of having been seriously violated physically. 1 out of at least 4 people have witnessed domestic violence between their parents. So these are things that are very common, and they leave an imprint. And of course, different people have different adaptations. It's not all trauma, trauma, trauma. You also are a particular person. Anybody who has more than one child knows that we all pop into the world with a certain given, certain characters. And so our characters determine to some degree how we take in trauma and how we deal with it. But at the end, trauma does leave its traces and leaves not so much the memories, and that's really a misunderstanding that it's about traumatic memories. It's about traumatic imprints, that your orientation to the world changes, the way you feel about yourself changes, the way you deal with intimate relationship changes, the way you deal with power relationship changes. So it changes who you are, it changes your identity, and it changes your physiology. And so you may get very hyper aroused in response to stuff that people around you go like, what's the big deal here? Or you may learn to shut yourself completely down, in which case you feel sort of not very alive, as a way of protecting yourself against trauma. But if that happens, you also lose out on the fun of life. So, but it has a complex series of sequelae. Yeah.
Right. And when people hear the word trauma, they often think about something extreme, an extreme event. But how broad is the definition actually?
In my mind, pretty narrow. The trauma is really something that really overwhelms your capacity to cope. For example, I imagine all of us sooner or later will know what's to have your heart broken. Yeah. Being in a love relationship that doesn't work out, you feel terrible afterwards. That is strictly not speaking of trauma. That's a human experience. Having people die, it's awful and painful, but that's also normal. Of course, it's different if somebody dies and you're responsible for it, or somebody dies and you're very involved in that person, like it's your own child. It can become a trauma, but it also can become just a very sad experience that is part of your life. And that's the difference. The difference is whether the experience changes you in a way that from now on you have a hard time engaging in your current life. And the oldest people that you guys are French, but the French don't honor this guy, Pierre Janet, who first wrote about it in 1889. He wrote the first book on the subject. And he said, after you get trauma, you spend all this effort on not feeling, on not remembering, on not reliving it. When you spend all your energy on trying to control yourself, you don't have much energy left to learn new things, to be open to new relationships. So trauma really freezes you in a particular position that makes it hard for you to move on. Yeah? And our job as therapists is to help people to feel free enough to move on and to have a life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think many think we've had an okay childhood, and well, yet we realize after a while that maybe we have not. What are really the signs that people can watch out for that may indicate that there is trauma?
The signs is usually that you become very upset about things that are really quite minor. And
Mm-hmm.
you have the same patterns in relationships where for a while things seem to work, but at a certain point you find that that person makes you feel terrible about yourself. Your body doesn't feel right when you're involved in love relationships. Um, you get walled off. You cannot get close to people. You feel like you're suspicious that everybody doesn't like you. You're convinced that if you walk into a room that people will neglect you or hurt you. That comes from somewhere. Yeah? And so what we do in therapy is to
Mm-hmm.
see where is that feeling located in your body and how old is that feeling. And then you historically go back, yeah, that was true when I was in second grade. Oh, what happened at the time? Oh, my parents got divorced, and I was in the class. There was a bully in this class who was doing really hurtful things to me, but there was nobody there to protect me. And then you go back to these memories, and the memories oftentimes spit out the old traumas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, how come that it works that way? What are the imprints of trauma on your body, on your nervous system?
Well, the imprints are that, these days we think very much in terms of brain networks,
Mm-hmm.
and it changes the salience network in your brain. The salience
Mm-hmm.
network is the network in your brain that determines what is relevant and what's not important. For example, I see a plane fly
Mm-hmm.
over the vineyard here. It's just a sound, and my brain says that's not important. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have an airplane crash, the sound of that airplane over there makes like, oh my God, I'm in danger of terrible things are going to happen. Huh? And so it is. It is that certain things become salient, become important to you that are generally not really important. So that's a big thing. And a big thing you have to change in trauma therapy is to help people to just take in things and not interpret them in a catastrophic way. Yeah. Uh, and the other network that gets very disturbed by trauma is the default mode network. The default mode network is the network in your brain that you're in when you just are with yourself and pay attention to yourself. And what you see is that that basic network of attention becomes very numb, so you don't feel very clear about who you are. You feel confused about what things inside of you mean, and you don't know what's important or what's unimportant. So there's some core network of yourself that basically gets very affected. And there's a third network, the executive network, that makes it hard for you to focus and to stay engaged in something and to begin a project and to end the project. And so it affects all kind of areas of the brain. Basically, when you look at it in detail, basically every part of the brain is affected by trauma in various ways. Yeah. Depending very much
And
on how old you are. It depends very much how old you are and who was there for you to help you to deal with the terrible event.
mm-hmm. And how come how come trauma has that effect on your body? And also, why does the body continue reacting as if the danger was still present, even if it's years later?
Yeah, well, it is a maladaptation. Some people say, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's a normal evolutionary response." I don't think that. I don't think that. I think in the wild, when animals get traumatized, they die. That if they get stuck in their trauma and continue to behave as if they're there, they really don't do well, and that's true for human beings also. It's really a maladaptation, that your brain gets stuck in the notion that the world is dangerous and terrible things will happen, and you cannot get out of that position. You cannot open yourself up to new experiences. So it's a maladaptation in a way.
Mm-hmm.
That at
Mm-hmm.
that particular moment is
Um,
helpful. If somebody will attack you, it is helpful to be vigilant. It's helpful to fight back. But if you continue to treat everybody after that in the same way, then it becomes maladaptive.
mhm. Maladaptation in the sense of an adaptation that went the wrong way, right?
It messes up your life. Yeah. It
Uh-huh.
makes your
Yeah.
life not
Yeah.
satisfying. Yeah.
And so I guess, a lot of people ask, why can someone understand these mechanisms, understand their trauma, but still feel stuck in these
Right.
patterns?
Well, that's a critical question. And um, understanding why you screwed up is somewhat helpful. Oh, I know I can't get close to women because my mother was such a terrible person. Now I know why I can't have a close relationship. That doesn't change your capacity to have a close relationship. It just now makes you understand why you messed up, which is somewhat helpful. But in order to change it, you need to have new visceral experiences that rewire your brain. So it's not a frontal lobe issue, not an understanding issue. Understanding is helpful, but at the core, you need to change the core physiology of your body. And that's why you met with Peter Levine, for example, who is so very good in helping people to retrain people's bodies to not automatically react as if there's a trauma happening. Yeah.
Is this why the traditional talk therapy sometimes reaches its limits with trauma?
That's right. And certainly that's my experience. I was trained as a psychoanalyst.
Right.
I still do a lot of talking and analyzing with people, but the real trauma work is really about helping people to have an experience that's on a very fundamental level, very different. That makes you really feel like, oh, that happened back then, but it's not happening right now. So you need to change some of the orientation of the mind and the body to feel powerful, engaged, aware of yourself. Yeah.
And so I guess you've studied the effectiveness of talk therapy versus body and somatic practices in helping with trauma. How do they compare in a way?
Well, you don't quite compare, but let's say in our last study, which is a study on MDMA, ecstasy, a psychedelic drug, half the people got 38 hours of very good IFS based therapy, and the other half got the same 38 hours, but that part of that was 3 sessions, 8 hours long, of MDMA, of being on MDMA. And I thought that the psychotherapy would help tremendously with things like self-compassion and being able to be aware of yourself. And what we found, much to our surprise, is that the therapy did not really change the PTSD all that much. It did not really change people's core understanding about themselves very much. But the psychedelic made a tremendous amount of difference in helping people in their relationship to themselves, basically.
You've studied also a lot of different modalities like yoga, like EMDR, and so
Yeah.
do for all the people who are listening to us out there and who I guess from talking to a lot of them and reading a lot of them sometimes feel hopeless, is this rewiring of the brain something that is possible? And do you have like a revealing story of someone for whom it was actually reversed through body practices?
Oh, absolutely. I don't have no particular story comes to mind,
Hmm.
although I have a lot of them in the body keeps score. But indeed, oftentimes when people start doing yoga, they start having a more loving relationship to their bodies. Uh, in psychedelic therapies, people's intrusions disappeared. In EMDR, they stopped having flashbacks and the intrusive memories went way down. So each one of these methods can make a tremendous amount of difference. And I also think that we have not looked at nearly enough different methods. For example, I've traveled a lot. I oftentimes get invited to places where there's a lot of trauma. And then you go to Argentina, for example, and you see people doing tango dancing. And I think to myself, that's interesting. In tango dancing, you really learn how to carry your body together with another body. This must be a great treatment for trauma. I imagine that's why it was invented, but we haven't
Hmm.
studied whether tango is good for trauma. But I bet that it is. And I just got an email from an old student of mine who now runs a big hospital at Harvard, who said, I'm still dancing tango, and it's really still helping me to stay online. So there's many different ways of doing it, and many people have their own thing that they're passionate about. I've never been passionate about one thing. I love working with psychedelics, but I love working with yoga and I love working with theater also. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And so, why does you really reversing that relationship with yourself come through body practices?
Because we are our bodies. Huh? And
Hmm.
in a way, the areas of our brain that get most affected by trauma are areas that put your body, that warn your body that you're in danger. And so that's why you become angry because you want to defend that body. Or or they cause your body to completely stiffen up and to be uptight. And that body needs to learn to relax and to feel that it's safe after all. So it really is a somatic experience. Like it's very much like raising a small child. How you can explain things to 2 year olds, but they won't get it very much. But singing to a child, hugging a child, moving to a child, and making rhythmical movements is what makes them feel safe. And that's true for mammals in general, that we need physical contact, we need to resonate with other people, we need to be in rhythm with each other, and that really is what solves trauma. And that is not something that is greatly talked about in Europe or in the US, but in various parts of Asia, Africa, South America, people are much more embodied and they really have very effective practices. For example, if you go to Brazil, you see all these kids in the favelas, where there's a lot of violence, do capoeira. Why do they capoeira? Do capoeira because in capoeira you feel like you can control your body. You feel strength in your body. You feel like a capable person. And so there's many more things we have to learn about how to treat it, and the current things promulgated in the U.S. and Europe are just a small part of what we know at this point.
Hmm. Right, and actually, you've conducted a few research on the
Yeah.
effect of body practices. Could you talk a little bit about these research and what were the results?
Actually, I have done research on yoga
Hmm.
uh, and on theater, but that's the only
Hmm.
body practice. Basically, like you had Peter Levine here yesterday, I don't think there's many studies on what Peter does. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, is it beautiful work? Absolutely. Peter and I taught a lot together, and Peter would do his body work, always very elegant. I would do EMDR.
Hmm.
Um, I think the patients responded about as well to EMDR as they did to Peter's work, but Peter's work was much more elegant than what I did. Yeah.
And so what were like results from studying the effects of, for example, EMDR? You talked about theater,
Yeah.
and yoga.
Well, the effects on EMDR was very dramatic, actually. And
Hmm.
to my mind, anybody who wants to be a trauma therapist, I would say the first thing you learn is EMDR because it's such a simple technique. It is not difficult to learn, and it is enormously helpful in taking care of specific traumatic memories. And our
Mhm.
studies show that people with adult onset trauma, so people who had very good lives until they got assaulted or raped or tortured, did extraordinarily well in EMDR. Like 78% got completely better. Um, but if you
Wow,
have
that's very
chronic
impressive.
childhood trauma, but chronic childhood trauma, where your
Mhm.
whole identity gets affected and determined by your trauma, it was not nearly as effective. And people need much more intensive treatment than just EMDR. Although EMDR may be a good component of the whole thing, you need much more than that.
Mhm, mhm. And so, what does recovery really look like for someone who has lived with trauma? How does it feel? What can be the symptoms, and how can I recognize that I'm
Oh,
actually getting better?
uh, when you feel better, you feel engaged, you feel alive, you feel when you meet a new situation, you feel I can help deal with this. This is not so difficult. If you start a new dating relationship, you feel confident that you will have a good judgment about this person and that you can be open hearted, but also know when this person is not the right person for you, you know that this is not the right person. So you know when something isn't working for you that you can say, thank you very much, this is not working for me. But that you feel really alive and you feel in charge of your own life. You feel like I am leading my life. And
Mhm,
my life is not being lived by my fears, not lived by my anxieties. It is lived by me. And I can determine it. I want to do something, and I can be relatively fearless about it and say, let's try that out.
mhm, mhm. Right. I see a lot of people asking what is EMDR. I realize we talked about it, but we didn't really explain. Could you give a little bit of an explanation
So,
for people who don't know about this method?
okay, so EMDR is a system invented by Francine Shapiro, where she discovered that if you move your eyes from side to side, when you think about unpleasant experiences, something seems to change and something seems to calm itself down. It's a very strange method, and everybody in his right mind, when you first hear about it, go like, "That's a crazy thing to do." But then we studied it, and clearly people got better. And many years later, we did a study to show what the eye movements do, what happens when you move your eyes from side to side, and together with Shireen Harazarian and Ruth Lanius in London, Ontario. We did a study together, and we saw that if you do these eye movements in response to a traumatic memory, then you activate a network in the brain that runs from your right temporoparietal cortex, which is the core emotional part of the brain, to the left insula, which is your relationship to your body, to your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is your relationship to time. So these eye movements do something to help your brain to realize what is bothering me belongs to the past and not to the present. It's real, and it was terrible back then, but right now, your brain knows it's not happening now, it was happening then. And that's really what EMDR does.
Right, right, and there's a big part of the masterclass where you actually do a live EMDR session with a participant who came to the shooting of the masterclass.
Right.
She was doing it for the first time, and she actually sent us a video recently, and said it was very impactful for her. She had a trauma with a fire in her apartment. You remember, and
Yeah,
it was a very very moving moment. And
yeah.
she just sent us a video with she was very shocked by how effective it was. And so, how
It's
come?
wonderful to hear because, of course, you never quite know, huh?
Aha, right.
Um, because I'm not surprised by the story, but if she would have said, "Oh, it didn't work," I would have said, Okay, we had only one session, and maybe this wasn't for us. So you always need to be open-minded about and have a number of different methods that you can do because one thing doesn't always work for everybody. So I'm really glad it worked for her. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so is this like reframing of the sense of danger
No,
really a key or
reframing is too cognitive. It's in the
Mhm.
deeper part of your brain. I like to say it is like if you have a dog. If there's a thunderstorm, your dog will put his tail between his legs and dive under the couch and behave as if it's in great danger. And most people who have had a dog know that experience. And we are just like those dogs. It is not that thought that dog is not thinking, oh, there's a thunderstorm, we may get a fire in the house. No, the dog has an automatic limbic system reaction to that noise. And that's how the human beings also. It's not really cognitive, although most therapies have always been sort of focused on you have to understand, you have to see, but that's not really true because these are not frontal lobe phenomena. These are in the more primitive part of our brain that shape our reactions. And so understanding it may now know, oh, that's why I react this way, but understanding doesn't really change that core orientation of that limbic system. Yeah.
Right. We talked a lot about EMDR, and I wonder if we can now. You've also practiced a lot tapping. What is
Some
tapping, and
tapping.
how
I
does it
used
work? Yes.
I don't know how it works. I think you need to ask an energy psychologist about that, like David Feinstein. No, I learned tapping from David Feinstein and some other people. And it happens to be it's one of these other things that are pretty weird. It is derived from Chinese medicine, where you tap acupressure points. The Chinese still haven't discovered what qi is. They still keep talking about qi, but there are these energy patterns in the brain that the Chinese are now finally trying to study in a um, but tapping a prescribed set of acupressure points seems to really help to keep people more calm and more engaged in things. So it's a nice way of an adjunct method that you can really use when you treat trauma to get people into what we call the window of tolerance. And if you get too excited, you cannot learn. If you get too numbed out, you cannot learn. So the only way you can learn is when you're in the right frame of mind and the right state of arousal. And tapping seems to be very good in getting people in the right state of arousal. I use it fairly regularly in my practice. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so last you mentioned also theater. So how does it work for people? How can people who've survived from a trauma use theater to change this sense of danger?
Well, I like theater primarily because of identity issues. So that if you have grown up in an abusive family, you tend to feel like the world is dangerous and people hate me and I'm worthless and I'm just going to get back at people because I'm so angry with what happened to me. And so you get locked in a state of hostility and shut down and not belonging to larger groups of people. And that's who you are. And so what I've been intrigued with is how you change people's identity, who they are. And one very good way of doing that is to play theater and to play the role of somebody else. And so in the place where I lived, where you came to visit us, we have a Shakespeare program called Shakespeare and Company that has a sub-program called Shakespeare and the Courts, where juvenile delinquents get condemned by the judges after being caught doing bad things. The judge may say, I condemn you to either go to jail or become a Shakespeare actor. And that tells you that America still has some civilized parts in it, because that's, to my mind, true civilization. And these kids come in and they are collapsed. They never proudly stood up. They have never really said something clearly. They've never felt like I'm a worthy person. And then they get to play the role of a mighty king, and they talk like a king. And they have a uniform on, and they have big swords, and they say, "Wow, that's what it feels like to be a really powerful person." How good it is to know that. And so, by playing a number of different roles, people become aware that I can be many different people at different times, and that I'm a flexible person who can adjust themselves for the situation that I'm involved in.
Right, excellent, and actually, people. So we will do an exercise a little bit later in the webinar with this methodology, so you can try it out. So actually, now we've done about 40 minutes of the webinar. We've talked about different modalities. You've talked about a lot of different studies, and now it's to the practical part. We can start with the first exercise.
Okay. So
we can do this first practice with
embodiment.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
So
Yeah, we can start with the
you
embodiment.
suggested that when people come to see me, they usually start with telling stories, and they have learned to tell stories without checking in with themselves. And so the issue for me is not the story, but it's its relationship to you and how you organize yourself. So when people tell me some story, I start off by saying, "So as you're telling me that, what do you feel in your body?" And many people say, "I don't feel anything in my body." Well, I hear some horrible story, and I may feel a crushing sensation in my chest. And my reaction is, my mirror neuron system is picking up your trauma, and I'm feeling the pain of your trauma, but you have learned to shut it down. So the first thing we have to do is for you to own your feelings, to feel your feelings. That I cannot fix you, but I can help you to tolerate yourself and to find solutions for yourself. I do not have the solutions for you, but I can help you discover things for yourself. And the discovery goes via feeling yourself. And so the first thing I may do with people is just notice yourself and notice how your spine is right now. And see if you maybe want to straighten up your spine a little bit, or whether you're contented sitting like this. But feel the difference between this and this. And then feel the tension in your neck. And just feel your butt cheeks on the chair. Just notice. And notice how your legs come out of your pelvis and go down, and feel your feet on the floor. And just notice your right foot and your left foot. And are they different? And then travel up your legs and feel your pelvis. That's really sort of the center of your body. And then notice how the spinal cord comes out of your pelvis, and that your ribs are hanging off the spinal cord. And just notice that spinal cord. And notice that your neck sits and folded up on top of that. And notice your breath. Just notice it. And then maybe put a hand on your chest. And what's it like for that hand to feel your body? What does that hand think it is feeling right now? Does it enjoy touching you? Is it just a job? And then what it's like for your body to feel that hand. Do you feel like too much pressure? Do you feel like, oh, I feel comforted by having my hand on my chest? Oh, let's do a little bit more of that. Huh? And so that's the beginning of the introspective component of trauma work, is to get to know this creature, who you are, and what this creature needs. Whether this creature likes touch, what does this creature can do to feel it safer and calmer. And so, for example, we can pay attention to our breath. You just pay attention to your breathing. You don't have to change anything. And just notice how shallow, how deep your breath is. Notice if you feel your abdomen as you breathe. Notice if your shoulders are leaning forward or backward. And what happens if you move your shoulders back? How your breathing becomes a little bit more open. And then breathing is one of the most important things of regulating yourself. And notice that if you take a breath in and you really focus on your out breath, and after you breathe out, you hold it there. You take it in. And I can't see any of you, but I'd be very surprised if most people who are listening to this don't feel a little bit calmer, a little bit more focused after simple breathing techniques, because that's the traditionally, particularly, of course, in India, but in other parts of the world also, that people have used to get a sense of control over their own physiology. And boy, is it helpful. That's something that has been very well established, that the way you breathe can make an enormous difference in how your mind can work. And that's very old knowledge.
Okay, everyone, how did you feel with this first exercise? Can you let us know in the chat? I feel calmer, relaxed, very relaxed, almost
Agitated?
sleepy.
Yeah. Or more agitated. That is also worth paying attention to.
I don't see anyone get agitated. I have great energy. It helps. Much calmer, grounded in my body. Calm. Okay, well, that's nice to hear. I'm happy that you had this first initiation. This was the first exercise. We're gonna do the second one in just a moment, the one about theater. But before that, we're just gonna take a few minutes to present the new masterclass that we made with few months ago. Now, actually, when we started doing the masterclass, we asked people. We started maybe a year ago now, and we started by asking people what did they want from the masterclass from Bessel, and you just talked about calm and groundness. Quite impressive to see that with 3,000 people, 37 of them answered calm, peace, and inner regulation. So, Bessel, can you talk about like why is this calmness and inner regulation really essential, and why also this kind of practice embodiment can create that neuroplasticity in the brain for people who have experienced trauma?
And this has to do with the autonomic nervous system, the system in our brains that help us to deal with danger. And when something unpleasant happens, you activate your fight-flight response. If I say something you don't like, you'll probably get up and walk away. That's you activate your fight-flight response, and it's fight, flight, and freeze. So when something unpleasant happens to you, you start to move, and you move away or you fight. That's normal. Or if it continues, you just freeze. You don't do anything. And so if you develop PTSD, if it becomes a trauma, then you get stuck in that fight flight, and you're always agitated. You always feel anxious. You always feel on edge because your body is expecting danger and is always ready to fight. Yeah? And so if we want to calm the system down, we have to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. And we do that by focusing our out breath. That makes that autonomic nervous system calmer. Of course, the person who has talked most about it is Stephen Porges, with his polyvagal theory, but what's underneath there has been known for a very long time already. And that you need to calm that autonomic nervous system down in order to become the master of your own ship. Yeah.
So in the masterclass, are guided by your wife. So why was she the right person to guide some of these practices?
Because Lisa spent 25 years being a body worker. And so she knows how to work with the body. And in her practice, she saw oftentimes that as she touched people in a particular way, that they had flashbacks and all kind of very emotional stuff came up. So she really learned to work with the body. And still, I send most of the people come to see me. I also send them to Lisha or other body people I know, because so much of trauma is located in the body, and you need to have a loving relationship to your own body. Yeah? And particularly if you have been sexually molested, touch may become a very dangerous thing for you, and you don't want people to touch you. But touch is also the most important comforting thing that humans have. Very old literature on that ventral to ventral, belly to belly contact is the thing that makes our bodies feel calmest and gives us most pleasure. If that becomes dangerous to you, you lead a life that misses a lot. So learning to feel comfort in your body and giving your body comfort is a very important part of healing from trauma.
Right. Very important part of healing from trauma, but also quite different for everybody. And so here's for you. When we started working about a year ago on this masterclass, it's funny that straight away you affirmed that there's no one size fits all solution. So asking you, for example, asking you, Bessel, how to heal is like asking a chess master what's the best move. Well, there's no best move in chess. It's only a move that depends on the situation and on the game at a certain point. So that's why we really built a course that is the first of its kind, because each person gets really a personalized version of the plan based on what works for them and what doesn't work. So, Bessel, why do you think it's only possible to recover with a personalized, something that is personalized for each person?
Well, I'm not sure if that's true, actually. Because people like me only see the
Your
people.
body is neuroplastic. We can change.
Sorry about that. I made a mismatch.
He was right, by the way.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Of course, I only get to see people who come for treatment or people who enroll in my research projects. So I get to see a certain sample of people. And I wonder how many people out there never see a therapist who find a way of healing themselves. And that would actually be a nice survey to do for like you guys, is to see how many people here have found ways that are really helpful to you, that we may not know about. Did your singing in a church choir help you a lot? I suspect that singing together can be enormously helpful. Did cooking for people help you? Did playing tennis help you? So there's many things that as an academic psychiatrist, I would not do with people. But people around the world have always dealt with trauma and may have found their own solutions also. So I'm always very curious what's been helpful to you. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so in the course, we go through different parts. We've done facial massage, a lot of like interoceptive awareness, tapping practice, a little bit of EMDR, side-by-side practice. We've done quite a few exercises with you, and also some exercises with Licia, including, for example, Qigong. We didn't talk about Qigong.
Yeah.
Have you seen it efficient as well as a way of working trauma?
I think some studies have been done now, but the first time I saw Qigong was the first visit I made to China, shortly after the Cultural Revolution, shortly after Tiananmen Square. The Chinese would not talk about their trauma. They would deny there was any trauma. But every park in China then, and as now, was filled with people doing Qigong exercises. And I thought, so these people cannot talk about their trauma. It's politically not allowed, but they sure know how to work with their bodies and help their bodies to be calm. And we're back in China fairly recently, and we saw all over China people making music together, dancing together, moving together, doing Qigong in a way that I've never seen it in Europe or North America. So they know something.
Right. Right. So there's exploration on Qigong as well in the course. There's also a few lessons on vocal practice. Why is a vocal practice something that you've seen work for people?
Well, that was Licia's particular contribution, because Licia is also a singer-songwriter. You can look her up on Spotify and listen to some of her songs. And Licia really understands the power of voice and being able to express yourself and to really say things clearly and to have a voice. A very big part of many traumatized people is they have no voice. When you're being traumatized, being assaulted or raped, you say something like, "Don't do that. Oh my God, don't do it." And your voice doesn't mean anything. And so a lot of traumatized people lose their voice and lose their capacity to really say things clearly and to articulate things and to really feel that is really what I truly believe. And so voice can be extremely helpful also as a part of trauma treatment.
Right. Okay, so, through this masterclass, there's about 43 lessons and 20 different practices. We talked about it, a lot of breath work, body scan, Qigong, theater, and so on. And so Bessel has built a way for you at each practice. You're going to answer some questions. Has this worked for you? How did you feel before? How did you feel after? These questions are standardized. And then after the mentor show team will send you personalized plan. So this is how it looks. You see, we made an example for you for Oprah. This was not the real Oprah, by the way. It's just like to show you how it looks. But this personalized plan is in order to build neuroplasticity, to rewire your relationship with yourself, tame the inner beast, like Bessel says. And it's based on your profile, so all the information we have about you, and all the answers that you gave in the course and in the workbook. There's going to be a workbook in the masterclass. And so here, for example, Oprah, your dominant pattern is hyper arousal layered with anxious avoidant attachment. At some time, you have some partial shutdown and so on, so that you can have a sort of a diagnosis. And then we'll rank what were the practices that were the most effective for you. So, for example, here, the self-holding, the self-talking was high impact. It's a duration of 5-10 minutes, and so on and so forth. Then the tapping practice, then the closing grounding practice that is in the course. We rank the different practices, and then based on your declared time slots, you're also going to answer some questions about when you can practice. So, for example, this Oprah here had a slot on Monday at 7 a.m. And here we put the grounding and sitting practice. On Wednesday at 12:35, the tapping practice. and so on and so forth. And we also give you a way to put it in your agenda so you don't forget. And then we also give you some practices depending on your state. So we split it between survive and strengthen. These are different type of states that you can be in. And here we do it for you to, depending on your feedback, to give you a personalized way to use this, depending on at what stage you are and how you actually feel, if you're in the survive mode, the stabilize mode, or the strengthen mode. So this, at the end of the course, everyone will get one of those. Okay, so we'll come to the last part of the webinar with the exercise. But before, I see a few people asking, how can I join the masterclass? So you're gonna get some links in the chat from the team for people who want to join. As always, for people who have been here the days before, the offer is the same. So you get, in the offer that we gave, you get the masterclass, the new masterclass from Bessel. You also get the Heal course from Gabor. You also get weekly live sessions with coaches, because as Bessel often says, you have to practice this with people who know this work and can do it with you and can guide you. So every week you'll be able to choose between 8 different sessions. We give you one every week for the whole year. And these are the coaches that are trained to practice this with you and sort of, take you by the hand to put this into practice. You also get in this offer exclusive webinars like this one, where we discover different types of topics, and you also get all the future master classes that are coming. We have a lot of different master classes on trauma that are coming from different guests.
Your body is neuroplastic.
Sorry.
We can change.
I seem to always do that manipulation. Okay, so how much is it? I see what is the cost and so on. So just before, this is an example of the coachings that you get. For example, this was last week. What somatic tools help reduce chronic tension caused by trauma? This is going to be an actual practice of some somatics and so on and so forth. So you get different topics every week. I talked about everything you get. So generally speaking, the whole value of this should be around $5,000. You get a lot of coaching, a lot of sessions, about 50 sessions and so on. But because we operate on a global scale, Mentor Show, the yearly price is usually $1,200. Now, especially for the launch of the course of Bessel's The Masterclass and for this event, the cost is reduced by 66% at $399 for the first year. This includes everything I mentioned before. And so we can only give that offer for the first 500 spots, just because you're going to get a personalized plan. So we need the team to be able to build that for you and to have actually time to do something that is very bespoke. So if you want to join, once again, you can you have the link in the chat, or you can also scan that QR code. Just before we move on, we have also a guarantee. If you ask yourself if you're a little bit doubtful, a guarantee for you that if you watch the whole course and if you complete all the exercises, and at the end of it, you still feel it's not for you, you didn't feel like it was useful, you can ask for your money back. So you just have to send us the pictures of the exercises. We'll check that you watch the course, and then we'll refund you, no questions asked. Now, just one thing on 29th of March, there will be an opening ceremony of the program for all the people who have joined, to explain to you how to best use the program and really get that energy going to start the program in the right way. This is going to be on 29th of March. Okay, so this is it for the masterclass. For people who still have questions, I'll stay at the end of the webinar after to answer any doubts or any questions you might have. But now, for people who want to keep practicing, can we move on to the next exercise, the theater?
Good. Did it tell you a particular quote? Was it Lady Macbeth?
Yes. I think
Macbeth,
it was from Shakespeare. Yes. So people, you can go along with us now. Sit down in your chair and just follow the path.
A little hard to do virtually because we really do it in person. So very, very impressive. When we do the theater piece, we learn about dropping in. You drop into your role. Huh? So here's one sentence, for example. So the background here is from Macbeth. In Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, or Macbeth himself, has just killed a whole bunch of people. He has been promoted, and he comes home, and his wife says, actually, I want you to move higher up in the hierarchy. I want you to become king yourself. And Macbeth says, there is a king. His name is Duncan. He's the king, and I'm just a thane. And she says, well, you should kill your king so you can become king. And Macbeth said, no, I don't really want to kill my king. And his wife says, well, you have a choice. You can either become king or have never sex with me again. So he thinks, what do I do? And so he's very hesitant to do that. She calls him cowardly. And then she says the following sentence: if he had not so resembled my father, I would have done the deed myself. And I think that's a beautiful sentence for if you're a woman who always feels afraid and can't stand up for herself, saying the sentence, if he had not so resembled my father, I would have done the deed myself. And to really play that role. And when we deal with the person to say that, we say, okay, my father. Does your father know that you're in this program? Have you ever thought about killing your father? Does your father ever want to kill you? Did you have issues with you? If he had not resembled my father. And so the feeling of father comes very deep inside of her. I would have done the deed myself. Have you ever done the deed yourself? What was it like for you to do the deed? Have you ever attacked people? Have people attacked? I would have done the deed myself. And so when you say these sentences, these words, and you can do it in any language, you can just find the best playwright in your language. You can evoke very, very profound emotional scenes, and you can feel what it feels like to say these things in your body. And that really gives you a whole chance of, oh, that's what it feels like to be powerful. That's what it feels like to really act on your aggressive impulses with your dad. That's what it feels like. There's many scenes like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so how could people try this right now at home?
If you can project it, or I can say it slowly, the sentence is, if he had not so resembled my father, I would have done the deed myself. Just try to say that. If he had not so resembled my father, I would have done the deed myself. And what comes up for you, as you say that? Did anybody resemble your father? What did your father look like? My father. Who is my father? Do I love my father? Does my father love me? Are some issues coming up between me and my father? If he had also so resembled my father, I would have done the deed myself. I would have done something very powerful. What's it like for you to do the deed? Have you ever done that? Have you ever stood up for yourself? Have you ever really stood up for yourself and said, don't ever do this to me? Have you ever hit people? Have you ever attacked people? What was that like? Did you only feel ashamed about yourself? Or did you also feel like that person deserved it? Interesting questions. Yeah.
How did you feel, people, about this this exercise? What came up for you? I would say it's interesting for us to get some feedback. Before we do we try another exercise? Maybe versus some vocal practice that you did in the course. Exploring the sounds, exploring through the voice, or anything else that you would like to share with people tonight.
Well, what we do a lot is oming. Huh? And what I like to say about oming, it's again the parasympathetic nervous system. And in every religion, they have these long out breaths. These days we associate it with Hinduism and with yoga to go, ooh. But even in Gregorian chants, like I spent a lot of time in Taizé when I was a young person, the monastery there, and we sang Gregorian chants, and they go, Dieu soit le repos pour mon âme, lui c'est mon espoir. And even the Dutch Reformed people, that is my tribe, they're very gloomy people, and they sing songs like, "Oh God, now bless thy miserable sinner." And even though the text is a little gloomy, the voice is long and drawn out, and it helps people feel calm and connected with other people. So maybe you want to make a long out sound, depending on your religious and cultural tradition, and sing a song where you focus on the out breath. Oh, Andius le repos pour mon âme. Agnus Dei quetolis peccati mundi. These are songs that really help people to feel connected with the people around them and gives them a sense of peace. Yeah, yeah.
So how can people at home who are watching this right now, what they do, maybe evil for people to try it out?
Well, there's a big thing here, and that's my issue also with mental show, is that the most important protector against trauma is community. And with our magnificent capacity with Zoom, we spend a lot of time in front of screens, being isolated from people. And so it's a very mixed blessing, because we get a lot by being on screens. We also lose a lot by being on screens. And so if there's anything I would recommend to people is to see if you can get a group of people together and cook for each other. And maybe sing together a little bit or talk about something. As human beings, we are monkeys with a big forebrain. And monkeys live in troops. They always live with other monkeys. We live with other monkeys, and we need each other. And we need to be accepted by each other. And so a very important part of trauma healing is being in community with other people. And maybe, I don't know what the mental show can do, it if you can share people's contact information with each other so they can actually get together with other people who are doing these exercises, and see if you can find other people to do them together with you and to form a community.
Right.
Get a friend to watch the mentor show with you.
Right. I mean, that's a big part of mentor show, because we estimate that with the programs we have on trauma,
Yeah.
people who say it has transformed their lives are enough people to fill the Madison Square Garden. It's more than 50,000 people. And so on Mentor Show, you get into a community as well who have
Right.
lived, have experienced similar things, and that therefore you can get in contact with, and that you can practice these things with obviously as well.
Yeah.
This is the goal as
Great.
well.
Good.
Okay, so we've
Okay.
gathered a few questions from the audience. Actually, there's a lot of questions, so we're not going to be able to answer all of them because that would take us 3 days.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to answer a few. Now, let me check. Are some people more susceptible to trauma than others? Question from
Yeah.
Joshua.
I think, well, there's genetic issues. That, again, anybody who has more than one child knows that your children are not equally reactive, and no two children are carbon copies of each other. One child is more phlegmatic, the other child is more arousable, and they both have their pros and cons. If somebody is quite sensitive, they may feel things more deeply and be more vulnerable, but they also may be able to pick up things more clearly than people around them do. So yes, that's one to some degree predictive factor, but not necessarily all negative. If somebody is sort of not engaged with other people, like on the autism spectrum, I think they're much more likely to feel at external insults much more and not get the comfort from other people. So that would make you more likely to get traumatized. And then there's the whole issue of social support. If you, it's interesting. Alan Shroof did a Minnesota longitudinal study where he followed people up for 35 years from before the time that they were born. They were white people who were unemployed and had bad circumstances. And before they had kids, they started to follow about the pregnancy, then follow these kids up for the next 33 years in great detail. At the end, the conclusion he came to, what was the greatest predictor about whether people would do well versus not do well, was how lovable their parents called them, their mothers called them at age 2. And so how much your parents is able to give you a feeling of being loved has a tremendous difference in how well you deal with trauma. So if you were a rather unloved person, which unfortunately many people are, you need to really open up your heart to actually take it in and to find people to give it to you. And that's a very big challenge. And for that, psychedelic therapy can be particularly helpful, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Elisa. How do you work through trauma that you do not remember?
People ask me that question all the time. If you would have read my neuroimaging study on trauma, you would have seen that all trauma is basically lodged in a non-verbal part of the brain. And so you tell a story that explains something, but the imprint of trauma is in another part of your brain. And sometimes you can find language for it, and sometimes you can't. But at the end, you need to reset your relationship to your body and to your fear system. So language helps with that, and being able to discuss with people is great, but it is not absolutely essential. And what we also find as people feel calmer and have done a number of treatments, that they get a richer memory system of their brain. So most of us don't remember very much of our past. But if I say to you, when you were 6 years old, what was your school like? Do you remember your teacher? And do you remember incidents? Initially, you'll probably say, no, I don't remember anything. And as we sort of keep focusing on the time of your life, you're likely to start remembering things. So it's in part an issue of safety to remember, and in part attention to really digging into yourself. I also found in EMDR, oftentimes people start with just a feeling of fear, of terror, of rage, and you do the EMDR, and then a story emerges from that. So the story usually emerges as people do their treatment. You don't need to have a story initially.
Okay. I had a question that is very often asked as well, from Mishi, looking for an advice on how can we work towards not affecting the younger generations, children, grandchildren, and to help them to learn better coping.
Well, that is the big question.
Yes, I know.
How do we not transmit our own crap to our offspring? So in that, it is
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
useful to have more than one caregiver. So your kids get to see different ways of being taken care of, so that if you're not very good at something, somebody else can take over for you. I think a natural thing for human beings, long time ago, but still true for some communities, is you get raised by a large family or by a village or by a tribe. That's really what we were made for. And now, as our culture, both European and American culture, it's become more and more individualistic, you deal with that one or those two parents, and that makes you more vulnerable to all this stuff. But having a variety of different models, a variety of different people who you can turn to is very important. And so knowing all of our limited capacities is very important for us to help to raise our children with other children and with other parents, where they get to see other models and they get to see, oh, my dad is sort of a little bit like that, but other people are a little bit different and I can follow that example. So having multiple examples is terribly important. And what I see in the people who I raised who now have children, they all find communities for themselves where their kids are not only dependent on their parents to take care of them, but also friends and other people. So kids get a larger perspective. Aside from that, whenever you do something really stupid with your kids, you may want to spend some time thinking about it. I like to say about adolescent kids, listen to adolescent kids. They will say all kind of terrible things, but they will be the last people who tell you the unvarnished truth, even though they may exaggerate everything. But listen to your feedback from your kids.
Right. I have a question here. Why do people who are traumatized become abusive?
Oh, that's because we have these systems where we see what we do, and see it all the time. You see it in the current American president, for example, had it the only mode of being in the world is to attack other people. And how do you learn that? Because when you're growing up, the guy who was always abusive got his way. And so you learn, if I become abusive, I'll get my way also. It's really an imitative thing. And I would say that people who really are abusive, they always come from abusive backgrounds where they got no empathy. And then in return, they have no empathy for their victims. For that, things like theater and psychodrama are extremely helpful to really get in touch with how hurt you were before you actually took on the habits of your abuser. Yeah.
Here's another
Very
question.
good question.
Yes.
Really
Yeah,
think
very
about
good,
that.
very good question so far. And here's another question we often get. Cautious femme. How can traumatized people who have essentially healed handle when their body still reacts to anniversaries of the traumatic eve? Like, how do you handle some relapse when you feel you've healed,
Oh,
but you get some relapse?
That is how it goes. You are a college student and you discover stuff, you do some therapy, and you feel like it's laid to rest. Then you get into an intimate relationship, and other stuff comes up, and that needs to be worked with. And then you have your first baby, and that baby then is the age at which you had terrible experiences happen. Bring up other stuff, and then later on you become old, and some other stuff comes up. So this whole issue of healing, you're not a healed person. You're a person who has managed to deal with and lay certain things to rest, but we never become perfect people. There's always new stuff that arises and new challenges. Yeah? Motherhood has a very different challenge than becoming an old person. And becoming old has its own challenges again, where old stuff will come up again. So these things still stay there to form your life, but hopefully people will continue to do their therapeutic work at various stages of their lives. Yeah.
Here's another question we often get. What can I do in the middle of a panic attack?
Notice it. When you have a panic attack, go there. Observe it. Look at it. Feel it. Notice your breathing. Notice what goes on. And if you notice, you'll notice that things change because nothing stays the same. If you're in your panic reaction, you feel like this will last forever. But if you allow yourself to notice it and to feel what happens in your body, you will notice that it changes when you take a breath. It will change if you tap yourself. It will change if you look at somebody who loves you. And so the thing with panic reaction, very much like with trauma, is that you lose your sense of time. But if you notice and if you pay attention, you'll regain your sense of time and say, boy, that was awful, but now I feel calmer. And maybe after tapping myself or after making my breathing deeper, I feel better in control. So have a relationship with your panic. Have a relationship with your rage. Notice it, own it, feel it.
Is it ever too late to love your body and feel comfortable with yourself again?
That is a good question. The people I've worked with all sooner or later get a relationship with their body and get better. But that's only the people I've worked with. I don't know the people who I haven't worked with. Yeah. And of course, some people have dropped out of treatments. So I don't know what happened to them. For some people, it may be too much at one time. And so, yes, in our practice, we see people get better all the time, but it's somewhat of a selective sample.
I see a few questions on how to join the course and so on. So there should be some links sent by the team in the chat. You can also, if you want, scan this QR code, and it will just take you to the sign up page. You can also type this URL if you want to. Okay,
can I put in a plug for my outfit, the Trauma Research Foundation? If you type in traumaresearchfoundation.org, traumaresearchfoundation.org, we have a lot of resources. We have an annual conference at the cutting edge about neuroscience and body work. And so there's a lot of resources on our website, particularly if you want to become a therapist, trauma therapist. We have extensive trainings for therapists.
Okay, great. We are just going to take a couple of questions more, and then we'll let you continue in your retreat, Bessel. What about the trauma bond with a narcissist? We get a lot of questions on being with a narcissist.
Yeah. the issue of traumatic bonding is a very real issue. And actually, I studied that early in my career, and I'm not sure if I agree with all of my findings back then, but there is a certain addictive quality to it. That your narcissistic partner blames you and makes you feel inadequate, and then you collapse, and then you have sex together or you do something else, and then you feel, now it's okay. And then you feel like more bonded to that person, because one problematic issue with human beings is that we get more attached to other people if we are in danger. And so if you look at your own life, maybe your best friends that you have came from a time in your life that you were most challenged, that was most difficult for you. Because when things are difficult for us, we bond with the nearest available people. That also happens in abusive relationships. You see this all the time, more on the part of women than of men, that I've seen, that you love this guy, and then he puts you down and says terrible things about you, and you feel terrible, you feel inadequate, and then he gives you a little something, and you go, "Oh, I got it," and then that addictive cycle starts. And what I described about 30 years ago, I'm not sure if I say it quite that way anymore today, is that if people stay away for longer than 6 months, they lose the attachment bond. It's a true addiction in a way. But you have to, I see this all the time. I used to testify in court cases of women who were abused by their husbands, sometimes men who were abused by their wives, not as common. And the judge would say, you have a restraining order and your husband is not allowed to see you, or he goes to jail. And the women would sneak out to find their husbands. They were addicted to them. And the judge would say, damn it, I put a restraining order on you, and you went back to this guy who beat you up. And they go, yep, they're addicted to those guys. And so you have to break your addiction by staying away, because this guy or this woman has a lot of power over you, and you need to detoxify. Yeah.
Okay, let's do one last question from Sarah. What are your thoughts on chronic pain, fibromyalgia, and trauma?
They're close, of course, very closely related to each other. And I think there's a lot more work to be done. If you yourself suffer from chronic pain, I would encourage you to read the book by my own body worker, who's called Carden Raben, Kardenraben, who writes about chronic pain. Peter Levine has things to say about chronic pain. And what we find is that good body work with traumatized people tends to decrease the chronic pain, as does a combination with internal family system therapy, where people are helped to open themselves up and meet their pain in more beneficial ways. So there's hope, but we have a long way to go in terms of really knowing precisely what helps people. I think you need some experts on this who is specialized in this, which isn't me. Yeah.
Right.
And we see it in our psychedelic work sometimes, that people resolve their chronic pain issues also, but I don't know how predictable that is.
Just one more question I saw that I think is interesting is what are your thoughts on forgiveness? Is it important to forgive to be able to get better?
It's a tricky issue.
Yes.
The reason why I came to California, where I am now, is to study a program for former prisoners that is based on forgiveness, and it's a very effective program. And so Father Boyle, who runs that program, is big on forgiveness. My personal feeling, that may change over time, is don't forgive prematurely. It's important to feel your anger and to feel what people have done to you. And if people have genuine remorse for what they did to you, open your heart for remorse. But if they don't have remorse, I don't tell you that you should forgive them. But what we find in our psychedelic world is that on psychedelics, people oftentimes retrieve the sense of, I was a precious, beautiful child, and terrible things happen to their child, and they get back in touch with themselves as very beautiful little kids. And then what we see in our psychedelic world is that very oftentimes, after healing their own wounds, people say, and I feel so sorry for my violent father or my frozen mother, because they never got to enjoy this beautiful child who I was. But I think it's very hard to forgive people as long as they do not have retrieved the sense of, I was a beautiful person. I didn't deserve that.
That's beautiful, and I think we'll end this webinar in this way. I think we've had a very special moment here all together, and actually, I'm personally very moved to see this masterclass come to life, because we've worked for quite a while on it. It was a lot of work. And there's you don't see the behind of everything, you just see us, but there was about 50 people working on this really hard for a long time. So, thank you, Bessel, for trusting us and trusting us to help you make this masterclass a reality. And well, thank you, and also your wife, Licia, because you've really poured everything to make this masterclass a reality. It was an honor to work with you, and I'm hoping that this masterclass can change many lives. So
I hope so too.
I hope so too. And so thank you, Bessel, also for this session tonight. There's a lot of tremendous comments, a lot of thank you in the chat. Thank you, wonderful, great stuff. Thank you so much. So I think people got a lot from it. Okay. Thank you, Bessel. I'll just take out your window here. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Have a good
Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Oh, I cut it in the middle of his take care sentence. And now I'll play for you the presentation video of the masterclass from Bessel, so you can get an idea of what's in it. And then I'll come back right after to answer questions you might have about the course. And maybe I'll show you a little bit the inside the website. I'll also potentially show you a lesson if we have time. Thank you, everyone, and I'm coming back right after.
If you've struggled for years with feeling overwhelmed, anxious, too much, angry, uptight all the time, no, it's not because you're crazy, it's because you got stuck on trying to cope with things that you were really to cope with. You couldn't do it back then, and you got stuck there. It is likely that your body has been geared to become a specialist in surviving danger or uncertainty or neglect, and that is how you have become wired, to protect yourself against old stuff that may not be going on right now anymore. But when the threat is over, your body may continue to react to all kinds of situations as if you're in danger, as if people are about to do terrible things to you, and you'll react accordingly. And you're likely to feel like, I am crazy. I shouldn't have become so angry. There was no reason for me to be so scared. But there was a reason, because you got primed for danger. You got primed for rejection. And that is the way that old stuff has come imprinted on your central nervous system. Your body is what they call in science neuroplastic. We can change. Just like really scary, frightening stuff may have wired your brain to perceive the world in a particular way, we can also help you to rewire your brain now so you're much more capable of dealing with other things like collaboration at work, or taking care of your kids, or negotiating an intimate relationship. But in order to do so, you have to actually befriend that internal world. And so in this masterclass, we will give you a whole range of exercises to help you to find out what can make you feel more comfortable living in the body of that creature that you are. If I breathe a certain way, if I move a certain way, if I perform certain actions, I can help my body to feel safe and calm. I'm Bessel van der Kolk. I'm a professor of psychiatry, and I'm the author of a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which has become a wildly read book. So this is my masterclass about what I've learned up to now in my career.
Okay. How did you find this this teaser, people? Can you let us know what did you think? Let me show you a little bit what you get in this course. Well, first of all, amazing session tonight. I thought it was really instructive, really well put, really well explained. Some very good exercises as well. And you know, this is the work of someone who's really pioneered how we understand trauma. And for the first time, he's making a masterclass with, well, all the practices that he's seen over the years. You know, Bessel is very humble, but he's been a Harvard professor studying trauma and making a lot of research on what works and what doesn't. So he's really well informed on the different type of things that can build that sense of safety that you need to heal. So here is a little bit what you get in the course. Do you see my screen now? Oh, there you go. Okay. So you get 43 lessons based on 40 years of studying trauma and really academic research. There's dozens of grounding and regulation exercises. There's really exercises from all the different disciplines that we talked about tonight, right? We talked about a lot of different things. So there's breath work, there's body scan, there's orienting, there's tapping, there's posture, there's movement, there's the theater work that he's done. There's a whole lesson on that, a lot of tapping. And then there's something that I don't think you've ever seen anywhere, which is 2 in-depth EMDR lessons, including a guided EMDR practice. So this is a way to, get started and try out EMDR. I saw a lot of people ask, what is EMDR? And we talked a lot about it tonight. As something that was very effective for a lot of people. Now, EMDR is the acronym of eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it's really one of the most scientifically validated trauma treatments in the world. It's recommended by organizations like the World Health Organization and many others. And in the masterclass, you discover how EMDR works in the brain, but you'll also be guided through a structured EMDR-inspired session that you can practice at home. Many trauma survivors had EMDR really mention that it has helped them access this. The goal is to help them access and release memories that years of traditional therapy didn't necessarily manage to shift. So this is really a way, like clinical studies have shown that some significant improvements can occur from just a few sessions of practicing this releasing of memories through EMDR. And this is, EMDR is just one of the dozens of practices that are in the course. There are some things that are inspired from theater, from martial arts, even, and I think it makes it a very unique program. Now I talked about it. I'm going to show you a little bit the different lessons. There you go. So you can see there's a first part, settling and landing, arriving, how to navigate the masterclass, some grounding practices, and so on. Then the second part of the SAFE acronym. The second part, you're gonna start really the work of awareness. So this program is really meant. I think throughout the summit so far, we've seen that through, for example, what Dr. Levine called titration, you need to really go at your own pace. So you need to go bit by bit, and sometimes small changes, but very progressive, can go a lot longer than something that's very brisk and sudden. So this is how we created the masterclass, so that you can really experiment bit by bit in a safe way. I mean, we called it safe for a reason. It's that the goal is to make you feel safe in throughout the journey, but it's also to experiment in a safe way. So you get a lot of orienting practice, checking in with yourself, different practices of self-talking, personal space, proprioceptive awareness, a lot of different practices. There's a lot of tapping. We talked a lot about tapping in the webinar, and then the F of the SAFE acronym is about feeling. So here, it's more of an exploration. So these type of exercises are less about grounding you than actually exploring different ways of feeling. These, Bessel and Licia, they've been doing this for 40 years, right? So they've been doing seminars and seminars for all those years. They know the kind of thing that work for people. And obviously, if you would go to one of those seminars, this would be like, thousands of dollars, right? So this is why this is such an opportunity. I think it's not everyone can go to a Bessel webinar, just not only because it would be expensive, but mostly because also you have to travel and so on and so forth. So here, we really built it with him so that you get the essence of it. This is the feeling part. And at the end of it, you get the enrooting reparative experience. And so this is where the personalized plan really comes in. I'm going to show it to you again, just because this is really one of its kind. There's nothing out there that is that complete, because you get something at the end that is built really only for you. So we base on the feedback that you gave on each practice. Bessel built about 5 or 6 questions, so that you can really have not only the practice, but also some kind of introspective moment of what did it do for you, and in what type of context it can be useful. I don't know if you can see very well. I think it's a bit hard for you to see because it's a PDF, but you get the idea here. You get a personalized routine that will be in your agenda, and that we will basically take you by the hand to create that routine in your life. I mean, we can see that what separates people who make progress and people who don't, it's really creating new habits, creating that second nature, so that by doing these exercises, you create new neural pathways in your brain. So we are here to really give you every chance to create those habits in your life and actually make a real difference in how you feel. Okay. Any questions on the program? Is the personalized assessment before or after you start? Personalized assessment is after each practice. So you saw there's dozens of practices. After each practice, you'll see there will be a few questions for you to answer. What dates and time will be the opening ceremonies? So there's one on 23rd, which is with Daniel Maté, Gabor's son. There's one on 29th, which build the program with Bessel. A lot of questions about the replays. So the replays of today, of all the different sessions, you'll get a link of the replays for free in the emails that we send you. So, check it out. We also sent it tonight and we will send it also tomorrow. But one thing is that these replays, you only get them for a few days for free. Then the way to get it for whenever you need is to join Mentor Show, and then you actually get the replays, all the replays of all the webinars in the Mentor Show membership. Let me show you, by the way, where you those. I think this is interesting for people to see. There it is. Okay, so this is, when you join a Mentor Show, you land here on the homepage, and so you get all these different masterclasses. Just so you know, there's about 50 masterclasses on there. We talked Gabor's masterclass on Tuesday, the Heal method. We talked about Bessel's, but there's 50 masterclasses on resilience, on trauma, on toxic relationships, on meditation, how to handle your emotions, and so on and so forth. So, for example, we talked about SAFE, the personalized plan. You get it here. You have your current lessons here. The Heal method obviously is today very, very popular. Oh, there you go. So here it is. If you click on Bessel, you get all the different parts that I mentioned: settling and landing, awareness, all these different practices. You see the times here. So you see, it's an extensive moment with Bessel on what he has found to be the most effective practices. So you get all of this for the price that we mentioned, $399. Usually all of this is $1,200, but especially for the launch and for this event, we make a special discount just for the next few days. So here it is. If you go in, you see it's beautiful. It's really meant to be like something for yourself, for a moment for yourself to invest in yourself. Actually, it's just been launched, but look at this. Beautiful. This is what I was looking at. Thank you very much. How beautiful is that? We already have people commenting and being happy about it. This is the masterclass, but you can also go on coaching. And here you see, so I talked about the weekly sessions with the coaches. Every week, you get the ability to book one coaching between all these sessions. So, for example, what routines keep my nervous system stable during stressful seasons of life? I mean, this is a very, very important topic. Or what helps me stop repeating my parents' patterns with my own children? This is a question that has been asked during the webinar. Here, you get about 1 hour. Usually there's between 20 people to sometimes with the big ones, like the one with Daniel Maté, sometimes it's 100, 150 people. But we try to make it as little, as small committee as possible. Okay. Did I show you everything on the platform? Oh yeah, I wanted to show you the replays, where you get the replays. So for example, on Gabor's course that you can see here, Heal the Pain, Empower Yourself to Heal, Align Your Relationship, Lifelong Healing. And here you get all the replays, you see. I showed this before. This is amazing. The first webinar that we did with Gabor. And here, one of the best investments I've made in myself, exceeded my expectations. This masterclass is world class. I could listen to Gabor all day long. Yeah. I'm already doing the Heal course, worth every penny. Thank you for this important exercise. Your presence, time, and commitment to healing work of trauma. What an amazing masterclass. You're an amazing teacher. And some comment in Dutch that I cannot read you, unfortunately. So to clarify, this program is worth 5,000. That does include the 399. So yeah, I admit that this masterclass is worth 5,000 with not only, I mean, getting a seminar with Bessel is worth probably 3,000. But then you also get weekly coachings every week. That's about 52 coachings, right? So, I mean, this is about $5,000. And here today, you get it for 399. By the way, for those who need, you can also pay in installments. So if you want, you can pay, I think it's like 3 times 159, and you can pay in 3 months. What is the Healing Diary? The Healing Diary is what you use during the Heal Masterclass to do the exercises, right? You gather everything in the Healing Diary, and this, will go with you everywhere and help you in difficult times. Do you get lifetime access? So no, this is a membership. It's a subscription for 12 months. So today you get the first year for $399. Usually each year it's $1,200. So you'll get first year at $399. Then if you want to continue the second year, you'll continue at $1,200. Now, if you don't want to continue the second year and you want to make sure that you don't have any renewals that you didn't expect, any bad surprises, you can very easily cancel on the website. So I can show you, actually, it's really one click to cancel. There you go. So here I'm in the masterclass. You go here, my account, and here manage my subscriptions, and here you can cancel. I mean, also you can just send an email to the support team, info@mentorshow.com, and they will do it for you. Actually, anytime you have any question, you can just ask the support, info@mentorshow.com. And they respond very, very quickly. Usually, I mean, sometimes a bit more, but usually it's like less than 24 hours. The 3 payments, it's like the first 3 months. Each month, you're going to pay 1/3. So let me check, because the team gathered some questions. that I might not have seen. How long is the course? The course of Bessel is about 6 hours, and it's really small bits of 10, 15 minutes. So you can watch them. By the way, you can download the lessons, so you can watch them in the subway or anywhere you want. So the weekly coaching sessions, they are at certain dates, but then you can choose, and you can there's different time zones. So wherever you are in the world, you'll get a time zone that works for you. Let me check some more questions. How much for the masterclass? I talked about this. Is there a separate masterclass? So SAFE is a separate masterclass. It's Bessel's masterclass. How do we know if the 500 people have already signed up? So we haven't filled the 500 spots yet. So there are some spots left, but it's filling up. So you can still get it. I don't know for how long, but you can still get it. The time will be similar as today for the opening ceremony and for the coaching. So we try to make it at this time that works for everybody. Let me check some question. Canadian, no, this is the US dollar, by the way. I didn't mention. Do you have a link? No, I still access. Okay, I answered that. Does the membership include any printable handouts? So yes, in every masterclass, there's a workbook, and the workbook is a printout. It's beautiful, and you can take it with you whenever. I already paid for Gabor Hill Masterclass. Can I add this? Yes. So if you've already joined the Gabor's Masterclass, you get the new master from Bessel. So this is included, and you get all the masterclasses on Mentor Show. So if you're already a member of Mentor Show, you can get this new masterclass. So the 500 spots, they are not filled yet. So if you join the course, you still have a chance to get in. It's coming up in French. That might be, if there's any technical issue like this, you can just contact info@mentorshow.com and they'll fix it for you. Okay, people. So we've been here 2 hours already. We need to keep some energy for tomorrow and for Sunday. Any other questions before we finish? Is there a refund policy? Yes. I didn't talk about that, but so if you have some doubts and you want to try it out, there's two different refund policies. There's the risk-free guarantee, So it's if you do everything, you watch the courses, you do the exercises, and you thought it was not what you expected, you can just ask for a refund. And then there's also 14 days where you can just buy the course, and within 14 days of your purchase, you can ask for a refund. You don't have to do the exercise there. It's just about the 14 days. So for people who are already signed up and who are waiting for the opening ceremony, you'll get it in the next few days. You'll get it in your space. You'll get an email also to be able to subscribe. But don't be afraid that you won't get a spot. If you're in, if you've joined ship, you will make sure you have yours. You say you're going to come at the last minute. The agenda for Friday and the schedule for Sunday with Frank Anderson. So good question. Tomorrow, I'll show you some exclusive parts of the Heal Masterclass. So parts that we've never shown, unless obviously you've joined the mentor show. Some parts of the emergency kit, some lessons. So I think this is going to be, you're going to like it. I'll answer also some questions that you might have. And on Sunday, we're with Dr. Frank Anderson, and we'll dig really deep into the inner parts, right? And we'll do some exercises on how to confront your parts, how to integrate your parts. So we are really at the last stage of integration. So this is promising also to be very interesting. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you again for today. It was an amazing night. Glad to spend that time with you, and see you tomorrow at the same time. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.